Hello everybody and welcome to this tutorial where we're going to be talking about how to change the default port in your Spring Boot application. So what I have here is a Spring Boot application initialized with the Spring Initializer, and I just have one dependency, that's the Spring Starter Web dependency, and I created a test controller here with just one get mapping that just returns a string in a response entity. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to run the application as it is. And as you can see in the console, you can see the Tomcat has been initialized on port 8080, so that's the default port, and the Tomcat has started on port 8080, so that's where our application is currently running. And if I go to a browser and do a get request, so I do this get request here on the controller mapping that we have, so on the endpoint mapping here, you can see we get back the test, and that's on port 8080, as you can see. Now, if let's say for some reason you want to go ahead and change that port, so let's say you wanna have another port that your Spring Boot application will run on. So it's actually really simple to do that. All you have to do is you have to go to your application properties of the application, and that's going to be found in the resources directory in your Spring project. So right here, as you can see, this is a newly created project with the Spring Initializer, and you should already have an application properties here. If I open that file up, that's where we're going to find that we already have one config. That's the name of the application right here, and right here is where we would specify the new port that we want to use. In this case, the key for that specific property is going to be server.port, and we just set it equal to our desired port. In this case, that's going to be, let's say, 8085. So we're setting a new port other than the default one, so it's going to be 8085. I save the file, and I'm just going to restart the application right now. And after we restart the application, you're going to see in the console that the Tomcat now has been initialized on port 8085, and the Tomcat has started on port 8085. So if I go to the browser and if I try to access the port 8080, that's no longer going to work because we no longer have something running on port 8080. But if I change the port here to 8085 and I click enter and I do the get request, as you can see now on port 8085 we are getting back the response from the server. So we've successfully changed the port of our Spring Boot application. Now this is using the application properties file. You can also do the same thing if you're using a YAML definition for your YAML style file for your configs. So basically, if you're not using the properties file, if you're using a YAML file, you can do the same. So I can say application.yaml. I can do server port, and I can say 8085. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to remove this file completely. So I'm just going to delete this properties file. And this is how you would specify the port, the different port if you're using a YAML config. So if I rerun the application, it should pick up this config also from the YAML. And it should start up on 8085. So as you can see, yes, we are starting up on 8085, and the Tomcat has started on port 8085. And I can just test that out here. As you can see, I did the request and we're getting the response back. So all in all, that's kind of the how do you change the default port in your Spring Boot application. So that's going to be all for this video. I hope you learned something new, and bye bye, and see you until the next one.